We've been told for as long as we can remember that everything is okay with balance and moderation. Everything you do, do it in moderation. A balanced life creates well-being. Eat extra veggies so you can have more desserts. Holding on, letting go, the best of both worlds, yin and yang. We've all heard these at some point or another in our life, but our question is, how does that apply to the business world, and more specifically, our workforce? What kind of workforce is the most profitable, the most successful? Keep these in mind as we explore various forms of diversity and their effects on companies' profitability.
Like Taylor said, we're all looking at different forms of diversity, and the first question our group chose to tackle is, how does diversity of different racial groups in companies relate to the organizational outcome and profitability? So basically what we're looking at is, does racial diversity pay? Before I start, I'm going to talk about what is diversity. When we're talking about diversity, we are referring to the policies and practices that seek to include people who are considered different from traditional workers or members of organizations. Sometimes diversity in the workforce has many benefits, but majority of the time, a negative connotation is associated with racial diversity in the corporate world because of policies like affirmative action, which requires companies to hire a certain percentage of each race to meet quotas. Our group looked at the most recent National Organizational Survey, which stated both positive and negative effects of racial diversity on a company's profitability. But I'm going to start with the positives. The survey said that racial diversity is directly associated with increased sales revenue, more customers, greater market share, and greater relative profits. A racially diverse workforce is good for business, offering a direct return on investments and promising greater corporate profits and earnings. So what this study did is split companies into three groups. The first group represented companies with low levels of racial diversity, which was 30%. The second group represented the 27% of companies that had medium levels of diversity, and the last group represented the companies with high levels of diversity, which was 43%. Then what they did was calculate the average sale revenues associated with each group. The mean revenues of organizations with low levels of racial diversity was roughly $51.9 million. $38.3 million was for those with medium levels of diversity, and then jumping to $761.3 million with those with high level of diversity, which is a huge jump for just looking at diversity. Not only does racial diversity increase profitability, it also increases competitive advantage. By broadening a company's field of vision, the more people you have of different races and ethnicities and upbringings, the more opportunities a company has for creativity. It also allows companies to think outside the box by bringing previously excluded groups inside the box. With that being said, even though diversity provides positive outcomes because of the growth and innovation, these differences lead to communication barriers and group conflict. The study found that the greater the amount of diversity in a group, the less integrated the group is likely to be. The less integrated the group is, the lower level of job satisfaction and a higher level of turnover rate is shown. Despite these potentially negative impacts on diversity on internal group processes, like the communication barriers and group conflict, diversity overall has a positive impact on organizational functioning and profits.
So another area where companies oftentimes struggle with getting that nice balance of diversity is with gender. So as of today, women make up nearly 50% of the total workforce, yet they only hold 12% of the world's board seats. And here in the United States alone, women only hold 4% of CEO positions at S&P 500 companies. So we can see that there is still that gap between getting women in the workforce and allowing them to escalate and elevate through that workforce. So many people recognize this, and I think we can all agree that there is it's not fair to women, but does this really affect a company's bottom line? So we looked at a study from the Peterson Institute of International Technology, and it found that companies with 30% female executives experience as much as 6 percentage points more in profits. Now that might not seem like a lot, but for a company that's pulling in $1 million or so in profits each year, that 6% adds up pretty quickly. Also, for Fortune 500 companies with at least 3 female directors, they see 42% higher return on sales and 53% higher return on equity. Now we're not saying that that is solely based on that gender diversity, but it is a key factor in getting those percentages up. So another area we see is with customers. For companies that do have a pretty solid diversity in gender, they do have more of a larger customer base because these customers see that this company is trying to be fair to their employees and they can relate to that. So why do we see these profits affected so greatly by gender diversity? One reason is that gender diverse workforce provides an easier access to resources, and this is really just common sense because if you have more brains on a project, they're going to be able to find those answers, that information that you need more easily. Also, men and women have different viewpoints. So if you're working on a project, you need to get these answers. I might have a different viewpoint than Taylor, for say. So just really getting that good balance of viewpoints and resources can really help a company with their profits.
Next, I'm going to discuss diversity of level education and profitability within an organization. Although there is no direct relationship between an individual's level of education and a corporation's profitability, the quality of employee you receive is directly affected. Students of higher education are found to be more productive employees within the workforce. Many scholars have argued that productivity is the main engine of economic growth. Many factors go into these employees' improved level of productivity, starting with new and developing technologies in the workplace. Students of higher education have been found to be more equipped to adapt to changes in technology in the workplace. This in turn encourages organizations to adopt and develop new technologies. These students have also sat through several lectures and discussions which have helped to improve their critical thinking, problem solving, and knowledge transfer. With these improved skills, they have enhanced abilities to make their meaning more clear to others. Along with these lectures and discussions, they are constantly faced with deadlines demanding certain outcomes. Because of this emphasis on outcomes and deadlines, students have observed to have improved abilities to use their time more efficiently. These employees are able to work more effectively and productively with others. This is due to several group-based activities with people from diverse backgrounds and will contribute by sharing ideas and workload. Also, these employees possesses the ability to rapidly acquire new knowledge. With all these considered, an individual of higher education will be more confident and well-rounded employee.
So we've heard about racial diversity, gender diversity, and diversity among levels of education. I'm going to take us through social class diversity, or classism, and how it affects profitability. The first study we found explains how class and property can restrain markets from improving their efficiency. It argues that social class has an income as social constructs in the workplace create this veil of money, making it harder to increase efficiency in the workplace. Another study focused on adaptability and its correlation to social class. It found that a company with diverse social classes would create and instill the adaptability skills necessary for success. It ultimately resulted in increased profitability. The final study we found was with regard to social class diversity in the workplace. It focused on risk aversion based on social class upbringing. It found that CEOs who were raised in upper or lower class families were more likely to take risks in the workplace, while CEOs who were raised in middle class families were more likely to be risk averse in the workplace. While this study is very interesting, its relation to profitability will depend on what your company is trying to accomplish. So with regard to risk, profitability could be a hit or miss depending on the company's objectives and maturity.
Now moving on to diverse personalities within companies. Now, are diverse personalities good or bad? A study within a software engineering firm shows that placing the right combination of personalities will in fact make the group more productive and efficient. The study used the same Myers-Briggs personality test that we took as a class. But on the flip side of this, if the personality types do not work well together, they'll be less productive and less efficient. Another study conducted within a business entity puts 328 people into 82 groups and conducted personality-related tests to see whether or not personality diversity could affect production level. This study also used the Myers-Briggs personality test. Agreeableness, openness, and conscientiousness were found to affect team performance using the team personality elevation variable. Extroversion and emotional stability were found to affect team performance when using the team personality diversity variable. This study agrees with the findings of the other study that the right or wrong pairings of personalities could possibly positively or negatively affect how efficient a group works. If right personalities are combined to work together, groups will in turn perform better, thus allowing a business entity to be more profitable. Now, could other factors alongside of personality also affect team productivity? Team performance was judged on 3 main variables in the next study looked at: demographic, ability, and personality. Demographic differences were found to affect team performance when team autonomy was high or low. Ability was found to affect performance only when team autonomy was high, and personality also only affected team performance when team autonomy was high. When a lot of interaction is required, all 3 variables were found to affect team performance, but only demographic affected performance when the autonomy was low. Furthermore, another study finds that when information that is relevant to the task at hand is elaborated on and communicated effectively within the group, the team will perform well regardless of the personality differences and demographic differences. So possibly communication could be the key. Studies are in disagreement on which factors affect team performances more, whether it be demographic differences or personality differences. But the fact that studies continue to use these variables and find results point that these research is definitely on the right path. The right combination of personality diversity was found to affect team performance positively. Effective communication was found to affect team performance positively. Ability was also found to affect team performance positively when there was high autonomy. Maybe a combination of effective communication, team members with qualified abilities, and last but not least, the right mixture of personalities would completely maximize team performance. If team performance across all levels of a business entity is at its peak, I believe it would be safe to assume that a business entity's profitability would also be at its peak.
So after hearing each of the group members and looking at all of the research that we did come up with a few claims that we think can be accurately stated to explain why these profits are so greatly affected by diversity. The first being that a diverse workforce can capture a greater share of the consumer market, which obviously correlates to greater profit. The second is a diverse workforce is likely to be more qualified workforce because you do have a greater pool of employees to choose from, which once again indirectly correlates to greater profits. Another one is that a more diverse workforce leads to a less hostile work environment because your employees will feel like they're being treated fairly, so they will not see any need to maybe change their workplace. And that led us to, again, show that turnover will be lower in a diverse workforce. Once again, turnover is a very high cost to a company because you do have to train the new employees once again. And also, of 321 large global enterprises, companies with at least $500 million in annual revenue, 85% agreed or strongly agreed that diversity is crucial to fostering innovation in the workplace. And once again, that's just allowing your employees to let their minds roam and get better results from that. More innovation and creativity is in a more diverse workplace, and also it gives U.S. companies a global advantage over all of their competitors. So according to this Pew Research that we did find, the study on diversity growth in U.S. businesses, our country's demographic makeup is changing rapidly. And the study was conducted over the last 50 years from 1965 to 2015. And it shows that the white population has decreased roughly 20%, while African American, Asian, and Hispanics population has continued to increase steadily over those years. We also see a trend that the traditional 2-parent household is decreasing, and the mothers now tend to take care of the kids at a greater clip than they did previously. Also, the middle class income is rising, so once again, businesses do need to continue to diversify in order to reach those needs. And like I said, these demographics have changed so continuously over the last 50 years, and they will continue to do so. So every company will need to increase diversity just in order to maintain that profitability because they simply do not have any other choice.
So what kind of workforce or employee makeup is the most profitable, the most successful? Well, we don't have an X plus Y equals Z formula to maximize profits through diversity, but we can tell you that moderation is key. We know that racial diversity can be tricky and cause some internal communication problems, but it can also capture a larger market share and spark innovation. We know that gender diversity can lead to increased profitability. We know that level of education diversity can lead to a blend of individualistic and collectivistic workers, even though some may crack under pressure. We know that social class can determine how risk-averse and efficient an employee will be. We know that personality diversity is beneficial when paired correctly. We stand here today telling you that changing times demand for corporate diversification in many in many areas, not just one. Some types of diversity come with more challenges than others, and it's your job to decipher which ones you want your company to take on. So, when it comes time to decide which areas of diversity you want to focus on expanding, remember, it's a balancing act.